Willie Mays is one of those rare players where the legend almost gets in the way of the baseball player. The catch, the basket catch, the home runs, the speed, the arm, the smile, the nickname. All of it became so famous that it can be easy to forget just how complete a player Willie Mays actually was. He could do everything, and he could do everything at an elite level. Mays grew up in Alabama, the son of a talented ball player, and by the time he was still in high school, he was already playing professional baseball with the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro American League. He was only a teenager, but the skills were already obvious. He could run, he could throw, he could hit, and most importantly, he could play center field as if he understood where the baseball was going before everyone else did. The New York baseball Giants signed him, and in 1951, Willie Mays arrived in the major leagues. At first, he struggled. He went hitless in his first dozen at-bats. As an aside, my dad told his brother that he didn't think that Willie Mays was going to be anything. But then he changed his mind. Then came his first major league hit, a home run off Warren Spahn. That's quite a way to begin. Mays settled in quickly, won Rookie of the Year, and helped the Giants make their famous late-season charge past Brooklyn to win the National League pennant. Then his career was interrupted. Mays was drafted into the Army during the Korean War and missed most of the next two major league seasons. When he came back in 1954, he didn't simply return. He exploded. Mays won the batting title. He hit for power. He won the Most Valuable Player award. And the Giants went to the World Series. That series gave us the play that became permanently attached to Willie Mays. Game 1, Polo Grounds. Cleveland's Vic Wertz drove a deep drive to center field. Mays turned his back to home plate and ran. Then, more than 400 feet from home plate, he made an over-the-shoulder catch. But the catch wasn't the whole play. Mays immediately spun and threw the ball back toward the infield, preventing the runners from advancing farther. That's what made Willie Mays different. The spectacular play was only half finished until he completed the baseball play. The Giants swept Cleveland and won the World Series. Mays was 23 years old, and somehow he was just getting started. Over the next decade, Willie Mays became the definition of the five-tool player. He hit for average, he hit for enormous power. He stole bases. He had one of the strongest arms in baseball. And in center field, he seemed to cover everything. When the Gold Glove Award was introduced, Mays started winning them, and he kept winning them, 12 straight. But numbers don't really explain what watching Willie Mays felt like. He played shallow because he trusted himself to get back on deep fly balls. He used his famous basket catch. He would challenge runners with his arm. He ran the bases aggressively. There was creativity in the way he played. Baseball wasn't just a sequence of pitches and outs when Willie Mays was involved. Something could happen. When the Giants moved from New York to San Francisco after the 1957 season, Mays went with them and became the face of baseball on the West Coast. Candlestick Park wasn't always an easy place to hit or play the outfield. The wind could turn routine fly balls into adventures. Mays learned it, he adjusted, and he remained brilliant. In 1961, he hit 4 home runs in one game. In 1962, he carried the Giants through a dramatic pennant race and back into the World Series. That series came down to Game 7 against the Yankees. Bottom of the ninth, the Giants were trailing by 1. With 2 outs, Mays ripped a double into the right field corner. The tying run stopped at third. Willie McCovey came up next and smashed a line drive that was caught. Series over. It was one of the closest Mays ever came to another championships. But championships were only one measure of his career. He remained one of baseball's best players deep into his 30s. In 1965, at age 34, he had one of his greatest seasons and won another Most Valuable Player award. That year, he hit 52 home runs while playing his home games at Candlestick Park. He eventually became one of the first players in baseball to reach 500 home runs in spite of missing a couple of seasons with the Korean War. Then he hit 600 home runs. He also collected his 3,000th hit. But Willie Mays was never just a home run hitter. He was one of the first great combinations of power and speed. He could hit 30 home runs and steal 30 bases. He could score from first on plays where ordinary runners stopped at third. He could turn a single into something larger simply because everyone on the field knew he was capable of taking another base. By the early 1970s, time finally began catching up with him. The speed wasn't quite the same. The body had absorbed 2 decades of all-out baseball. In 1972, the Giants traded him back to New York, this time to the Mets. His first game at Shea Stadium as a Met came against the Giants, and naturally, Willie Mays hit a home run. It almost felt scripted. One of New York's greatest baseball heroes had come home. The final series wasn't always graceful. Mays knew he wasn't the player he had once been, but the Mets made an improbable run to the 1973 World Series, giving him one final October. And in Game 2 of that series, at 42 years old, Willie Mays delivered the final hit of his career, an extra inning RBI single. That feels right, not because Willie Mays needed another statistic, but because after everything else, the catches, the home runs, the stolen bases, the throws, his playing career ended with Willie Mays still contributed to a baseball game that mattered. There have been players who hit more home runs, players who stole more bases, players with higher batting averages, players with stronger arms. But almost nobody ever combined it all the way Willie Mays did. For more than 2 decades, he could change a baseball game with his bat, his glove, his arm, his legs, or simply with the possibility of what he might do next. That is why Willie Mays isn't remembered merely as a great center fielder. He's remembered as one of the clearest examples baseball has ever produced of what a complete player should be. And for me, he remains the guy whose game I went to see when he retired. With the Mets, they had Willie Mays Day, and I was there. Thanks to my dad for bringing me to that game. It's a lifelong memory. I'm Mr. Baseball, and this has been Players, a Smell Baseball podcast.